Have you ever wondered what study tips actually work for a dyslexic? If you have, then this video is for you. My name is Kathleen, by the way, and I'm a dyslexic here to help other dyslexics. I help busy, overwhelmed parents understand their child's frustration with dyslexia so they can support, encourage, and empower them. Let's get into this video. It's not a secret that dyslexics struggle when it comes to reading, writing, and spelling. It's also known that dyslexics struggle with executive functions, so study skills are also an area of concern for dyslexics. And so today I am breaking down exactly what I did in high school, at home, at school, and study tips to help you and your child figure out what works best for them. This is something that I haven't really covered before, but I'm more than happy to share, and it has been something that has been requested several times. So I want to go ahead and share this information with you so that you can start making plans for next year to help you have a better study foundation ready to go. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So during the school day, I did 4 things that really helped me in high school. And so the first one was I actually got to have a note taker. Well, it wasn't really like a professional note taker or anything. I got to borrow friends' notes and make copies, but I had to prove that I was trying to take notes on my own, and so we would be able to compare my notes compared to their notes when I would be studying. The second one was I would have my test questions read to me. So during a test, the questions would be read. And this was really easy. So we would provide, this dates me, obviously, a tape recorder with headphones. So like a Walkman to the school, to each teacher. And the teacher before the test would read the question to me on the cassette. And then when it came time for the test, I would pick up my test and I would pick up the cassette player. I would listen to it on my headphones. If I needed to hear it again, I could rewind it. And then that was the only real testing accommodation I had. I also had extra time built in just in case I needed extra time. But most of the time I didn't do that. And so I knew that it was there, and if I needed it, I could use it. And so that really helped with not having as much stress about, oh, I have to finish this by the time the bell rings. But I really never took advantage of it because I knew that I was missing the next class and I was missing the next lecture. And so I would really try very hard to finish my test on time. But if it was too much for me, then I would definitely take advantage of it. But I also didn't dawdle. And the fourth one was I took advantage of tutorials. So whenever the teacher would have tutorial hours, so either before school or after school, I would go and talk to them and ask them specific questions about things I didn't understand for clarity. So those are the 4 things I did at school to really help me understand the curriculum and to level the playing field. Now let's talk about the 4 things I did at home to make this easier. The first was I had all of my text read to me by one of my parents. When it came to high school, most of the time at this point, it was my dad. So my dad would sit down and read the text with me, and he would underline and help me follow along so I could learn the words. This was very helpful, and sometimes I would need specific chapters read again. So we would also bring out another tape recorder, and I would record him reading the text. So when it came time to I needed it read again, I could listen to it again when I needed it. We don't have to do that anymore these days. Technology has definitely improved since I was in school. And so what you could do is you could get all of your books electronic and you could have a screen reader read them so your parents don't have to read it to you. This was definitely something I recommend to all of my clients that I work with, that having the screen reader is very important. And this is one piece of assistive technology that I still use. And it just helps give me my time back because I'm not spending forever trying to figure out exactly what the text says. And then once I look up, I still don't understand what I just read. So I have to read it again. Now that I've decoded all the words and figured it out, I have to go back and read it a second time for comprehension and understanding. So this definitely takes a lot of time for dyslexics, and most people don't realize that. So when you add assistive technology to it, I'm cutting it in half because I'm not spending forever decoding the words. I'm spending my time working on the comprehension and understanding what the author's trying to communicate with us. And one of the things, I had tutors for my difficult classes. Science was difficult for me, so I had a tutor 1 to 2 nights a week. Depending on the test and finals, I would have more tutoring time. I also struggled with calculus. Math before that was very easy, but calculus, and I had access to a tutor. I had access to tutorials, and our community college also offered like calculus tutoring services where we could go work together as a group, and they would have a calculus special answering questions. And I would be there 2 nights a week for at least 2 hours working on calculus. I spent a lot of time. So having access to tutors was definitely something I took advantage of. The third one is take a break. Everybody needs breaks. I know that I do. And so sometimes just taking a 5-minute study break changes everything. Or if you become so frustrated and nothing's making sense, just go on to something else. Take a break and try something different and come back to it later. And most of the time it makes sense then. My fourth tip for at home was make the information as multisensory as possible. So in my school, we had spelling test in the 11th grade. Spelling test. Every week we would have a spelling test on Friday, and then we'd have to put those words into sentences, and it was a lot. I understand why, but at the time I definitely was not happy with the fact that I had to learn all these huge words so quickly. So I would make it as multisensory as possible. And looking back on it, I knew what to do, but I didn't know what it was called. And so it was multisensory learning. And for me, the trick was to make it when I had movement. And so I literally would get up and do jumping jacks to every spelling word. And so I'm going to go ahead and link more about a video I've done in the past where I talk about how I did spelling boot camp. And I would literally do that, memorize those words through movement, and then go take that test. Do I remember any of those words to this day? No, but I remembered them for the test. Okay, so the last part of this is study tips. I have 3 study tips that I use on a regular basis that really helped me. So when it came to studying, I did not wait till the last minute to do anything. I would work on studying and reviewing all the time. And so I'd literally chunk my studying into smaller sections. And so once the chapter was assigned, I would read it and I would make note cards. And these note cards would have the vocabulary words on them. And so I would have 1 concept per card. And this became kind of a visual study aid for me. And so when I would go back and review, I wouldn't have pages and pages of notes where it all ran together. I actually had 1 concept per card. And so visually, I could look back and remember. And being that there was only one concept on that card, it became easier to be like, oh, it's this piece of information, instead of taking forever and writing it on paper. In the beginning, I wrote it on paper and then I wrote it on note cards. And I finally figured out that just writing it on note cards and then going over it in extra time was more efficient use of my time, and it was exactly what I needed. And so I wouldn't get as confused, because with it all written on one piece of paper, it all ran together. But with the physical seeing of the cards moving to the back of the deck, as I call it, just the back, it made it so much easier to understand that. And also, when it comes to learning languages, I had to learn Spanish. I was not exempt from learning Spanish. I was told to try it. If it doesn't work, then we would reevaluate. But I had to try and prove. And so the one thing that helped me with Spanish was to color code. And so I went and bought all these pretty pens in all these different colors, and I literally color coded all of my note cards. And so all the masculine words were blue. All the feminine words were pink. All the verbs, because it shows action, action is go, were green. All the irregular verbs, because there were just a few irregular verbs in Spanish that we had to learn, those were orange. And so I literally took every single color and assigned it to something that I needed to learn in Spanish. And when it came time to taking those tests, I could visualize and remember my note cards, and I could remember what color those words were. So then when it came time for the test, I'd be like, oh, that was pink. I will add the law because it's feminine. Oh, that word was green. It's action. I need to conjugate this. And it helped so much. So using color coding, chunking it into smaller pieces, and then putting it on note cards were really the biggest things that helped me study and retain the information I needed. I hope you found this information useful in what worked for me in high school. At the time, I didn't have an IEP because I went to a private school, and so accommodations weren't as readily available. But I also have said this, and looking back on it, being a special ed teacher myself, is less is more when it comes to accommodations, because if you have so many accommodations, the child can't keep up with them, the teacher can't keep up with them, and it becomes really hard. But if you take just a few accommodations and know exactly what your child needs and works with them so they become aware of the accommodations, then they can use them, they can advocate for them, they can ask for them, and it becomes much easier. For me, I know that the accommodations that I needed in place were my text read to me, my test questions read to me, note taker, and if I needed it, extra time. Those were the 4 accommodations that I had in place that helped me. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.